Time Management for Student by Dr. Vijay Agarwal. Chapter number 5. Always keep an eye out for these. In this chapter, I have attempted to put before you certain major elements that influence the development of your character and personality. Assimilating them would undoubtedly help you to cultivate the habits that would lead you to success. Never in my life have I met a person who enjoys wasting his time. All the people I have met in some way or the other look forward to or at least want to manage their time. The only problem that I face while explaining the concept of time management to the people is to unable to give up them a mechanical way of managing time. Time management is an art which can be only perfected through constant practice. There is no one formula or mechanism that could be followed in order to manage your time. It is a very adaptive in nature and needs to be customized as per the requirement of the circumstances. The point here is, though it is very easy to formulate a mechanical way of managing time, the mechanism wouldn't be free from loopholes and flaws. It is thus entirely an adaptive process. I have discussed earlier in this book, one can only win over time if he wins over himself. He can only control time if he exercises control his own mind and emotions. This is the reason why we should concentrate more on our personal development than we could on our time. All the ingredients that are required for the proper management of time and the proper cultivation of our character are present within us. It is only if we direct our attention and consciousness towards ourselves that we actually begin to learn the secrets of mastering the human life. Certain elements which are already present in us and are required for success need to be cultivated even further, and those elements that might hinder our progress, also present in our own self, should be subdued. In this chapter, I would attempt to draw your attention to those issues which might be hindering your progress. Right now, I would discuss certain undesirable elements that all of us have embedded in our personality, which needs to be subdued. What I feel is that knowing these flaws should better equip you to tackle them. Your first and foremost enemy is procrastination. Procrastination is the habit of deliberately delaying your work, as we have discussed earlier in this book, that this is the last thing we need if we want to exercise time management. No matter how much we delay our work, it always retains its impression in our mind through we think that externally we have avoided the work for the time being. The most ironically thing about the habit of procrastination is that once we stop doing it and complete our work in the stipulated time, we should be surprised as to how simple the task was to do. There is a very interesting principle given by Parkinson regarding the phenomenon of procrastination, which is it would take you a day to reply to a letter, and it would be also take a day to reply to a 10 later. It is up to you if you want to finish the task in one day or drag it for 10 days. The second enemy that you face is lethargy. The cause of laziness is more mental and psychological than it is due to physical exertion. If you believe that you are tired, then undoubtedly you will feel the same way even though you might not be physically tired. I understand that after a day's hard work, it is very natural to feel tired and lethargic, but I do not understand the reason when people say that they are tired after having laid to the comforts of their beds throughout the entire day. If we want to successfully practice time management, there is no room for laziness. Another development that I have seen in recent time is while justifies why they did not do what they had to, people say that they didn't feel like doing so, or they were not to be a right mood. I haven't been able to comprehend this sentence today. Does it mean that if we feel like doing nothing when our examinations are coming up, we just sit idle? The reason for this kind of behavior is again not acknowledging our agency of the situation. People who are career oriented and who are work oriented are only one who do not talk in this fashion, and as a result they are always successful. People who say that they didn't feel like are actually confessing that they are weak and it is not their ability to control their mind by signaling so they are inevitable put a stamp of failure across their back. Another word that can be termed as the psychological hype of the day is getting bored. The massive net the people have woven around themselves, comprehending of tension, competition, depression, and confusion has given rise to boredom. And under these circumstances, it could be really unnatural if one found his focus. This feeling of boredom has given birth and contributed to success of various industries such as drag tracking, discotheques, and the film industry, pop music, etc. What I would react on is that we shouldn't allow our boredom to be utilized as a commodity by various industries. I do not understand that how a youth who is centered on creating a firm foundation for his life has a name time to get bored. The only reason why one could get bored would be if did not enjoy what he was doing, and in such a case one shouldn't change his occupation. It's understandable and natural. If you are bored once in a while, but being bored at getting sick on your work on a regular basis is unacceptable. Aiming for perfection is indeed commendable, but being a perfectionist to that extent that we don't even start our work while waiting for the perfect circumstances is not wise at all. If you are not picking up a piece of work because you think that you are not perfect in it, or that you would not be able to execute it with perfection, then let me tell you that where perfection is the goal, it is a virtue that you should be striving towards. It is never a state in which we can reside always. Bringing about perfection in our work is a target which is perpetual in nature and can never be accomplished in the absolute sense. If we always wait for all the traffic lights to reach green before we start our journey, it is not hard to understand that the journey never be started. If you have a very extensive list of things that you would want to do, it is understood that none of things are very important to you and neither do you have a definite goal to accomplish. People who do have a definite goal and work towards accomplishing it only have one objective in front of them, while the others, less important ones, by default exit their list. Discard all these activities in which are not as important to you as is the pursuit of your goal. Having these activities listed just cluster up your list and enhance your mind. Most of us cricket fanatics. What is the reason behind it? If we are not pursuing a career in cricket or any other sports, that we would reserve our inspiration from cricket, then what is the reason? And it is the reason justifies, or it is just that talking about cricket has become the latest hype among the youth these days. It is always good and enjoyable to watch cricket for the purpose of entertainment. Once in a while, foot following is like fantastic is a phenomenon that I have never understood. These days, cricket matches are played every month and the series lasts for many days. Does that mean that we should come up our work and follow it like crazy? Competition is a good and necessary for the expansion of abilities and therefore should be invited as long as a healthy one and does not involve the clash of egos. If does involve such a clash, then just trust me that nobody is benefiting from this kind of competition and it can be said to be senseless. The character in the plays of the great playwrights Shakespeare always expressed a state of dilemma as to what was to be done and what was to be not done. If we are confronted with such a situation, it becomes really hard for us to take a concentrated decision. If we are able to take once the decision inappropriate. Due to this state of mind, it has been often observed that most people hesitate to take decision at all. This kind of people are forever stationed at all crossroads of life. It is true that each decision before being taken should be weighed in its pros and cons, but unnecessary delay in taking decision may cause the opportunity to flock away from us. Once upon a time, a wealthy man comes to Ram Krishna from Hans with a big of gold and asks him to keep it. The saint obviously refused to do. When the man insisted a lot, then the Lord Krishna took the bag and gave it to the man again, telling him that he should throw away the bag into the river on his behalf. Listening to this, man was perplexed, but he could not argue with the saint. He took the bag and started walking toward the river, and when he failed to return after a long time, the saint sent a lord to take for him. The lad saw that the wealthy man was taking out a single gold coin at a time from the bag and throwing it into a river half-heartedly. It is a dilemma which kills our mind. I could like to discuss with you an interesting exercise that you might want to try for yourself. Like everybody else, the mind must also be bombarded frequently by ideas, desires, and apprehensions. We often dwell on our thoughts and our desires. Our body does not care whether our desire is an achievable one or it is just an impractical within. It thus reacts in the way we feel. Our body only understands the language of our emotions and reacts in the way we feel. Whenever there is a doubt in our mind, or our body reacts accordingly. Whenever we focus our thoughts on something negative, our body starts feeling in the same way. At every level, the exercise that I want you to try is, for a few days, monitor your thoughts and apprehensions and note them down on a piece of paper. Ironically, we would find that even 99% of the one worries do not take shape of our never materialize. This proves that the reason why we spend so much time worrying was not justified at all. If we repeat this exercise a few days, we would find most of our tension and anxieties disappearing. Most of the anxiety reside in our minds, not in the real life. The only reason why we are wholeheartedly today is that most of the apprehensions that we had in our minds did not materialize. The funny part is that these thoughts and worries, which would probably never materialize in our lifetime, compose most of our thoughts and influence most of the ways in which we behave. Another problem that most of us are confronted with, and which is major hindrance to the process of time management is careless. We lock our horses in even before we have traveled a few places together. If we have locked the door properly, when we study for an examination, we have in mind that we need to revise a particular chapter or a particular topic for the second time, but it slips out of our mind, and just before the examination, we find that we have completely forgotten about our plans of revision. We often go to the market, and after having bought a number of commodities, we return home and all of a sudden realize that we have forgotten to buy something important which we had to go with an intention to buy. Due to this habit of carelessness, not only do we waste our time, but also increase the amount of effort that we need to put in for a particular task. In all the above mentioned situations, we see that we need to allot an extra amount of time to all the tasks which we are not performed with due cares. We may corrupt this habit by carelessness by a very simple but effective exercise, which is, before we begin any task or go anywhere, we should give ourselves a minute or two to contemplate upon that we actually want to do and what is primary necessity in conducting such a task. If we do so consciously, we would find that our habit of being careless has reduced by a considerable margin, and that we are also better organized and better occupied to execute the task. As we have discussed earlier, the cornerstone of curing all kind of carelessness is to be alert at all times. By being alert and attentive, we realize that we exist in the present circumstance and in the present tense. It is feeling of recognition of our present and that our existence, if we practice to do, carelessness and absent-mindedness can be reduced to the great extent. The great scientist Albert Einstein once said that if we make one incorrect input, we should require making at least 17 more inputs to rectify it. This means that if we commit a mistake due to our carelessness, we can only truly rectify it by numerous efforts in relevant direction. What we need to note here is that by making these efforts, in no way are we accomplishing something out of the ordinary. These efforts are only required to be made due to the carelessness and are an utter waste of time. Therefore, it would be in our interest if, while understanding the task for the first time, we are attentive and completely focused on what we are doing. We all know that if we spend our time doing a useless work, which is no way is relevant to our primary task or directed towards our well-being, our time would go down the train. We should also understand that if we waste our time on senseless arguments, even then we waste our time in a similar manner. Often it is seen that even after hours being spent on these arguments and debates, no definite conclusion is never reached. Neither do we learn anything through this process, nor we are able to pass on any knowledge to the person with whom we are arguing. Through debates may sound entertaining, they often lead to wastage of the time of people who are involved in them. Hence, I would advise you to stay away from such a debate as far as possible. It is a virtue to hold on to what one believes is, but trying to prove them same things to others may not be the most judicial utilization of your time. One thing which is most integral to the process of time management is misleading your own business. Do not waste your time on things that is no way would benefit you to relate to you. Do not intervene in the situation that you do not demand your presence. Worrying about your own slaves, your career, and what steps you would take to manage your time judiciously and most effectively is all that you need to care about. Leave the preachings to the saints and Manley's discussion to ideal hidden dreamers. What all I have discussed in this chapter may not be new to you. These are a few situations and circumstances which you might have undergone and experienced in your day-to-day life. As far as job was concerned, I have brought these small experiences together as if they were little store of how to construct a nest that is meaningfulness is convenient to you.